Hey everyone, Maria from the Madison Area Public Library. I am back again with another author. This time we have Bobby Nash. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to go through a couple of questions so you guys can get to know Bobby, some of his work, what inspires him, some tips and tricks he has for up and coming writers. But let's just get right into it. So our first question to you, Bobby, is just tell us about yourself, who you are, where you're from, and any little interesting tidbits you got.
Okay. Well, hi, I'm Bobby Nash. I'm an author. I write novels, short stories. I also write comic books. I've done a couple of screenplays. And this year I actually wrote my first straight to audio script, which was a nice little challenge that I had not done before. For a publisher out of the UK, I adapted two short stories of mine into audio dramas, which was a nice, fun challenge. But mostly I'm a writer. That's what I do. I also do a little acting. I also draw a little, but mostly writing takes up most of my day.
A little acting.
A little acting.
A little acting.
I've done some small movies and small roles. B movies, local stuff, things like that. I've been killed in a couple of things. So
That's awesome.
Yeah, but I also do. I live in the Atlanta area. There's a lot of filming here. I've done some tiny roles, and I've done some background work. Things like that. Nothing huge, just there or featured or whatever, but just for a day or two on a project. But I've also done some small movies as well, and it's always fun.
That's totally interesting. I love that. Yeah, you're in a great place. Walking Dead was in that area too, right? Yeah, definitely. Okay, next question. What interested you into becoming a writer?
I started out when I was a teenager. My grand dream, I had my future all laid out. My grand dream, I was going to draw comic books for a living. The problem was I wasn't quite good enough that the companies would, I wasn't quite good enough. I wasn't there. But I started writing stories to have things to draw. And then I had other friends who were artists who were like, write me something, And so I started writing for them. And then oddly enough, I was still splitting my focus doing both and wasn't really getting anywhere. And a friend of mine actually told me that gave me some advice that I guess I was just in the right frame of mind to hear that day, which was, have you thought of just focusing on one of them? And if you focus on one, you'll get better at that one. And he says, personally, I think you should focus on the writing. You're a little better at it. I'm like, okay. So, it was one of those things that I guess he caught me on the right day because it made sense. And I started focusing on the writing. And within 2 years, I was writing comics for a publisher, getting paid for it. So there was something to what he said. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, good friends sometimes have the honest. Sometimes it hurts to hear that criticism, but yeah, my husband does the same thing. He draws and he writes, but he says I'm never going to have enough time in the world to get all the stories out of my head.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, hopefully he'll be watching this when this.
Sometimes you just that tough love, and that's exactly what it was. He says you're not going to like what I'm about to tell you, but I guess this is one of those things that it was the right day, because if he'd have told me that a week earlier, I wouldn't have listened.
Yeah.
So it just was, yeah.
Did you always see yourself becoming a writer? Was there something else you wanted to do before writing kind of became a thing?
Well, like I said, the art, I wanted to do that. But once I decided writing was my path, I really wanted to do that. And I throw myself into things. So like, it's hard for me to have hobbies because they take over my life. So I really focused on the writing for quite a long time. At first it was doing comics. Like I was teaming up with artists so we could do comics and we could pitch comics to publishers. We could do some ourselves or we could whatever. But then into that process, the idea hit me that I want to try writing a novel just to see if I can do it. And so I did that. I wrote a novel that was horrible, but I finished it,
That's an accomplishment.
Right. So that boistered me enough to say, let me try it again. And so I wrote another novel, which turned out to be the first one I sold to a publisher. But I wouldn't have been able to get it if I hadn't finished that first one. Finishing that first one felt like such a big accomplishment. And it is. And one of the things I always tell people, because I get asked for advice a lot, is set those goals. And then when you meet those goals, celebrate those goals, because that will help you reach the next goal.
That's very wise wisdom right there. That is definitely something that I too usually say that to people because it's
Mhm.
still small goals. You don't know how that elevates you mentally and positively.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, finishing something, reaching a goal or whatever. It makes it does something chemically in your brain, but it really helps you. It motivates you to keep going. You know, and so yes, celebrate. Absolutely.
What inspires your writing? Is there a genre? Is there an author? Something that you read when you were a kid that just kind of like sets your tone to what you write?
I I read a lot of different genres. I'm what they call a hybrid author. So I'm somewhere. I do my own stuff. Like I have my own publishing company. Sorry, I'm doing this backwards. The book's over here, there. Yeah,
Yes.
there we go. Sorry, it's back. Yeah, it's backwards. It's hard. The book's over there. These are some posters from books that I publish myself. So when I'm doing stuff I'm doing myself, there's a little more freedom to do the kind of things I want to do. Now doing the one like over, I got that one right there. That's published by a publisher. So I'm do what they want. So sometimes I get publishers, and I've been doing this a while, so I know how lucky I am. So I don't want to sound like I don't know that, but sometimes publishers will call me and say, "Hey, you want to write a Western?" I'm like, "Sure." Or, "Hey, you want to write a science fiction story?" Or, "Hey, you know." Mm-hmm. And so that happens. So sometimes I'll write whatever they ask for. The stuff I do on my own tends to be mostly like action and crime thrillers.
Nice.
I like to solve crimes. I like to kill people in books. I really do. Yeah, my brother used to tell people that his brother killed people for a living, and it was which is always good for a laugh. So I like to do. So I can. But doing both of those, I can juggle, you know, and I can kind of play in other sandboxes. Like I don't want to write. I like science fiction, but I don't want to write it all the time. But I can do my stuff and then write some science fiction here and there, as it comes along. So I'm very lucky. I'm in a position where I can juggle genres.
Nice.
And
I like that.
Yeah.
That's different.
I hope that answered the question.
No, that totally did. Because I do know people that can actually do the, they pick a topic and they can write well on it. And then some people are like, no, I just write mystery. I write sci-fi, and that's cool too. That's just the thing you're into.
Right.
But do you remember the first story you ever written or the content that was it?
I remember, this will go way back to when I was in high school. So we're going to go all the way back to the mid to late 80s. The late 80s, because I graduated from high school in 1989. So yes, I'm old. But we had, remember when you were in high school, they would give you you get a bunch of letters every week in your English class. You have to write sentences with them.
Yep.
My God, that was boring. And so I was bored. And so I remember just one day, right after class and it was my last class, and I remember talking to the teacher as I was going out, and I just like, is there anything else I can do? Like, and he knew I was writing stories and doing stuff for the newspaper and things like that. And he's like, well, be creative. I said, how about if I write a story using all those words instead of just a bunch of sentences, just do a story. And he's like, as long as it's not 20 pages,
Don't make me read that.
Yeah. He's like, if you want to do a short story and use all the words, be my guest. You know what? That'll be creative. I'll be curious to see how you do it. And it was fun. So I started writing stories that way, and it unlocked some interest of me, and which has helped me now working for other publishers, because I have to play within, I've got to use these words, and so I started doing that, and I found that I was excited about the class where I hadn't been before, where I'd been bored. So then I upped the ante, because you never knew what next week's words were. But I upped the ante. I started ending the stories on cliffhangers with "to be continued." And then next week, I would have the challenge of finishing the story
and constructing it around what you were given.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And making that work. So those are the earliest that stick out for me that I kind of remember doing. I'm sure I had done stuff prior to that, but those are the ones that always stick with me as being the first that I like prose. I'd written some comic stuff, myself, but that was the first prose stuff I remember doing.
Kudos to your teacher for inspiring and let you just kind of be creative. Now, a lot of teachers will listen to a kid, just do the work, they get that sometimes, but yeah, kudos to that teacher.
I had that teacher to thank, and it kills me that I don't remember his name. But I had another teacher that also in English class. I used to sit in class and I would draw while I'm listening. I was still taking notes. I had a notepad and I had a drawing pad, and I'd sit there and doodle. And I remember this one. This was Mrs. Clark. She caught me drawing in class one day as she was walking around. And I had good grades in class, so I was paying attention, but she caught me drawing. Now, I got caught drawing in all kinds of classes, and it was usually put that away.
Yeah.
She caught me and she says, "That's not bad. We have she was also in charge of the newspaper. She's like, have you ever thought about doing a comic strip for the newspaper?" So she took what I was interested in, and instead of just shutting it down, pointed it toward a good use.
Yeah, she watered it for you. Yeah, she let it grow. Yeah,
absolutely. And so I had a couple teachers that were just excellent for doing stuff like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Next one I'd like to throw at people: if there was a story, novel, movie, screenplay that you wish you could have written, what would it have been?
The one that made a lot of money.
Star Wars.
Yeah, I would. Oh, yeah, I would. That was actually the second movie I ever saw was Star Wars. We saw a double feature when I was a kid at the drive-in. There was a double feature they played, and the Star Wars had been out a little bit at this time, so it wasn't new. It had been out a few months, but they did a double feature: Jungle Book and Star Wars. So the Jungle Book was the first movie I ever saw. Star Wars was the second movie the same night. It was awesome.
That's pretty awesome. Back to back. That's nice.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I see books or movies, and it's not so much the way they did it, but it's the plot, and I go, why didn't I think of that?
The obvious one is you're like, I could have done that, maybe even better.
So it's, I don't know if there's one in particular, but yeah, I'm like I said, I kind of wish my books would find the audience those books did, because I am still very much a small press guy, so I'm not. I'm not selling the number of books that say a Stephen King or a Michael Connelly sells. It'd be nice if I did, but I'm not. So what I wish most of the time is like, man, I wish I could find that audience. That's more it than, I wish I'd have wrote that. It's like I wish I could grab that audience. Yeah.
Perfect follow-up to what are the challenges of being an indie author, indie publisher?
I am a one-man band. It's all me. I do everything. I set up, now this is for the stuff I publish myself. The stuff I do for publishers, the publishers do they do things like the cover or the production, things like that. On the stuff I do myself, I either have to do that myself or pay someone. And I don't always have the luxury of paying someone. This is what I do. This is my full-time job. And so it's, as an indie, it's very feast or famine, and this year has been more, I was going to say it's been more famine, and it has because I haven't had the conventions. I haven't had the in-person events where I sell paper books, but I have noticed ebooks have sold better this year than last year so far. So, yeah, the not being out, not being able to sell paper copies to people has been a little, has hurt the piggy bank a little. But as an indie publisher and the stuff I do my own, like I said, I'm a one-man band. I'm very fortunate. I did not draw these covers. I have been very fortunate to have artist friends that were able to work out deals or swapping this and things like that where we can do whatever to get the books out, and because a beautiful cover helps your book tremendously.
Yeah, definitely.
And so I've been very fortunate in having other people that we can swap things out or do whatever. So that helps. And then, but I write them, I'm doing the production work. You try to get other people to edit, because when you edit your stuff, you're still going to miss stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm marketing, I'm setting up. Plus, as I do things with people, I try to promote the people that are doing covers, and stuff like that.
Cross promotion.
And we're doing audio books, so I'm proofing those and hiring the audio narrators, and then I give those an edit, and so there's all kinds of that stuff, and I'm creating ads, and I'm doing promotion on social media. I'm doing promotion through like my website or Patreon, writing the newsletter, setting up interviews like this, or setting up conventions, or setting up book signings. So I'm doing all that. So my day really is, as cool as it is to say I write all day, writing is a small part of what I do. And so, but there's a lot of that, there's a lot of juggling that goes along, but you have to do all that stuff. Yes, setting all that stuff up and doing all that stuff doesn't really add to the writing. It's important, an important part of it. So, it's a business, and I'm just unfortunately, I just don't have people to hand that off to. I hand it off to me.
Just bring it back around.
Yeah. It's like, oh, that guy will take care of it.
So, what are the benefits? I know you said you work both. The person I interviewed before you, she said the same thing. She's worked on both sides. So, what are the benefits to you as being an indie versus having a publisher?
When you work with publishers have their own guidelines, their own rules, their own way of doing things. Like the Stowe books that are behind me here, the poster, for example. I originally wrote them for the first couple at least. I wrote for a publisher who bought the series and was just going to do ebooks. So they're novellas. They're 30,000 word novellas. There's not a lot of publishers that are publishing 30,000 word novellas. So when I got my rights back when the publisher went out of business, my choices were to reformat them to the size that other publishers were working, which would mean doubling the size, or doing them myself. So and I like the size and format they're in, that they work for this particular thing. So I decided to just do them myself. I can continue to write 30,000 word novellas, and I can release 3 or 4 a year.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the year, you're getting a full novel's length. It's just broke up over the year. And so that works for me with what I'm setting up with these characters. Ideally, I want to get to the place. I've got the Snow book. I've got another couple of books that I'm doing novellas, and I'd love to get it to a point where I'm putting out a novella either every other month or every month between the three. I'm nowhere near there yet, but I'd like to get there.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, yes. And I'm not as fast always as I'd like to be. Because like I said, I'm still juggling that around work for publishers as well. So, but with it being an indie publisher, I can do things like that another publisher might not want to do.
True.
Or, because not every publisher wants to do 30,000 word novella series. So it made more sense to do that on my own. I can tell the kind of stories I want. Like in small press, I've had trouble selling my crime stuff to small press. Yeah. It's more of a sci-fi, a fantasy, things like that. So
I've noticed that too.
Yeah. So doing a modern day, crime thriller, I just decided to do those on my own. I can do what I want with them. I can set them up a certain way. So like what I do with the Snow books, I release a 30,000 word novella in ebook and paperback. And I started doing the paperbacks mainly for conventions, but they're still available. Then we do an audio book. So you have that one book in those three options. Every 3 of them, I collected into a collected volume with 3 in 1. And so we do a collected paperback, a collected hardcover, a collected ebook, a collected audio. And so we just keep doing that. And then every 3, you do it again. And so that seems to have worked for me. I'm not so sure a lot of publishers would have wanted to do it that way. So it gives me some freedom to experiment or try things. Or really, if I want to try a genre I've never tried before, sometimes doing it myself is great. Or that anthologies are wonderful for that, Yeah,
I love anthologies.
Yeah, somebody says you want to write a Western. It's like, well, if I can write a Western or not. But I can write a Western short story and try.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'll change this up a little bit. I've been changing this as I've been saying it. Where do you see yourself writing in 10 years? Or is there a goal you're trying to accomplish in 5 to 10 years? Something that you would like to achieve that you haven't yet?
I would really love if in 10 years I'll be 59 years old. I would like to think that it's self-sustaining by then to where I can live off this. I cannot fully live off of what I do now. and like I'm saying, like buy a house,
Yeah.
just it's not there. I'm certainly in a far better place than I was 10 years ago.
Okay.
So there is a progression. 10 years ago, I would have killed to be where I am right now.
Today. Oh, that's
So
awesome.
yeah. So hopefully in 10 years, I would love to be in a place where it sustains itself, and I'd have a little more money to play with, and I could you're not worrying about, man, can I pay the phone bill this month, or
Yeah, tap into that audience you were saying. Like maybe it'd just be easier to get that return of like people and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, an ultimate goal, and people laugh when I say this, but one of my ultimate goals is I would like to have the words New York Times best-selling author in front of my name at least once.
That is you know what? Anybody that I know, all my friends that want like have gotten into writing, I understand that. Because in the library world, we see that at almost every magazine, the top 10, top 20 in some different genres and things like that, or the top 10 of everything that has come out. So yeah, I can totally understand that.
Yeah.
That is definitely one of those things.
It's amazing how that helps too with your sales. Like I won a couple of awards over the last few years for my writing. So having award-winning author in front of my name actually opened some doors
Yes.
and got people to try it, because you won an award. There must be something to
about. Yeah. Any advice to new and up and coming writers that you would give yourself? Some advice you would have given yourself a couple of years back or in the beginning if you would have known this instead of that,
Yeah, I would have done a couple things differently, because when I started, doing it yourself was not really an option.
Yeah.
Doing it yourself was very down on in the late 80s, early 90s.
Yes.
If you were self-publishing, that just meant you weren't good enough to really sell your books anywhere. That's how people thought.
Yeah, comics and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Not like today, where doing it yourself is a viable option that people don't look down on you for doing. That it's so. I would say if you're starting out, make goals for yourself. Decide what you want to be, because there's multiple paths you can take. Why are you writing? Are you writing to have a career, to sell books, make money, hopefully build a career? If so, you need to do these things. If you're just happy to write books, put them out there. If they sell, great. If they don't, that's great too. I can give them to my family and friends. Nothing wrong with that. But you may not have to do the same thing a person trying to make a career out of it is.
Yeah.
When it's a hobby, you can write when you want. When you want this to be a career, you have to treat it like a job. That means on the days you would rather be doing anything else, you're still in the chair, still trying to get work done. Now, there are days, everybody's got to take a day off. So I'm not saying kill yourself trying to get your writing done. Take a day off when you need it. But there are, if I didn't write every day, I just go, man, I don't feel like doing anything. I'd never get anything done.
Yeah. Those mental hurdles.
Yeah. I treat it like a regular job. I have to, like when I had a day job, I got up, I got ready, I went to work, I did the hours at the job, I came home. This is the same way. I get up, I know I need to be at the office, around a certain time. Spend so many hours there, take a lunch break, come back, spend so many hours, take a break. So treating it as that career, it's allowing me to get more stuff done, because I know what my goal is. My goal is to put out more books and make money, and I'm going to do more marketing. I'm going to do more stuff like that. Whereas if I was writing for a hobby, you wouldn't have to do all that. You could just write when you want, throw a book out and go, hey, look, I have a book here.
Exactly.
Mom, here, dad, here, aunt, uncle, friend, nothing wrong. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I mean, like I said, some people just write, put it up on the internet, and they're happy, they're done. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. But if so set your goal. This is what I want to do with my writing. And then you can learn that way. What I wish I had known is that one day that writing would be a business. Because I did not think of that when like I said, there was no do-it-yourself back then.
No.
So I wish I had the foresight that this might be. I would have taken business classes.
Yeah.
I would have learned. I would have learned a lot of business things that I've had to learn on the fly, or learn because I screwed something up.
Yeah, through experience.
Yes. So So if you want to make it a career, you have to treat it like a career. just like any other job. And that means long days sometimes. It means, it means your friends call you up and say, hey, want to go to the movie? And you're like, can't. Or your friends call you up and say, you teach your friends too. Don't call me up and say, you want to go to the movie or dinner now. You say, you want to go to the movie or dinner tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Then I can say, sure, I'll work a little extra today.
To make that time up for tomorrow.
Make that time up. Right. Same kind of thing. So you have to teach people around you, I take care of my father, and it was a big hurdle to teach him. And before she passed, my mother, to not, every time they wanted something, not call me right that moment, store it. Unless it's urgent, it can wait until tomorrow.
Yeah.
or you can wait until later today. Here's the times I'm working, work around that. And so it'll take some training on your part to get them to.
Oh, definitely. Because creative minds work on a different type of schedule too. Like when you're on something, you're on, and when you're struggling to get past that hurdle, you're like, don't call, don't say my name, lose me for a little bit.
And it's not like a faucet. You can't turn it on and turn it off. If you're in the zone and your concentration gets broken, sometimes that means you're done.
Yeah.
You can't get it back. So yeah, it's I have an office. I close the door, and like before this, I call. Look, the phone's turned off, but like with my dad, it's like, I'm doing this. I'll call you when I'm done. And so yeah. So I mean, you just have to train people, but like I said, it's know your goals, set your goals, decide what you want to do, and hey, the thing I've learned about authors, they're happy to answer questions. If you're a newbie starting out, and you're on Facebook or Twitter or whatever, and there are authors there, can I ask you a question? Most time they'll say sure, and you can ask questions of authors. Like if you find an author who's kind of going where you want to go, so that's my goal. What they're doing.
Yeah.
Ask them a question. Most of the time you'll get an answer. There's sometimes you won't. Most of the time you'll get an answer.
Well, thank you so much, Bobby. This has been a great interview. Thank you so much for all your insight. A lot of great knowledge you put out for our viewers today. Lastly, before we go, I'm going to have a slide at the end showcasing where they can find everything, but would you like to plug a website, or if you're on Facebook, anything like that?
Sure. Well, BobbyNash.com is my website. That's kind of the hub for everything. Ben Books is my indie publishing company. It's BEN-Books, which you'll see in the thing. I'm at author Bobby Nash on Facebook. I'm at Bobby Nash on Twitter, and I'm at Bobby Nash Writes on Instagram.
All right. Thank you so much. If anybody watching has any questions for Bobby or anything that you see during today's series of videos, please leave a comment underneath the video. I can definitely fund it to Bobby. I can also pass on information, and definitely we're all here to help inspire you guys to write. So get out there, get that piece of paper and pen, start getting some ideas. But thank you so much, Bobby, for doing this.
And, thank you for having me. It was fun.
Thank you. All right, guys, we'll see you in a little bit with our next author. Bye.